Hello and welcome back. Today we are talking about the top free agent centers for the NFL in 2026, and I know that there are a lot of exciting options at the top, but if you look at the length of this video, you might notice it's not the longest, and that is because there just isn't a high volume of options. There are good options at the top, but I think you're going to have a lot of teams who are going to go, well, I guess we have to look to the draft. The good news is this is a pretty deep draft class when it comes to the center position, and that's something I'm going to talk about a lot later down the line as we pass the combine, but there is a lot to be excited about. But at the same time, if you want a surefire starter, you want to make sure that you can cross center off the list going into next year, yeah, you have to look at the free agents. That's just the reality of how this works. So you have to ask yourself, what risk are you willing to handle? And keep in mind, free agency is limited. Not every team that wants a center is going to get one. But we're going to start at the top with Tyler Linderbaum being the clear number one option. He is clearly the best center, specifically in terms of run blocking. He's one of the best in the league at that. And I think one of the most appealing things about him is he is young. He's 25 years old. If you sign him and it works out, you have your center of the future. You have someone who can be around for another 10 years if you want. And really what separates him is he's so mobile. He can get to the second level. He was effectively a lead blocker at times for Lamar Jackson because he could get outside so quickly, and that can completely open up a playbook when you have a running quarterback. He also, he's so fast and he knows that he's fast, so he can sell a reverse play by waiting until the last second to get out and block. And, if you want to go into the draft absolutely certain you have a demon of a run blocker on your line, this is your guy. If you're not sure about your guard position, but you're not going to sign a guard and you want to go, we have to have somebody in the interior who can help us in the run game, yeah, Tyler Linderbaum is who you're going to want. He is a smaller body, and so at times he struggles against the bigger defensive tackles who have bull rushing power. I think you really need to put him next to guards with a strong anchor. He can pull their weight in terms of run blocking, but he's going to need some help in terms of pass blocking in the interior. And the reality is he needs to be a scheme fit wherever he goes because he will reset the center market. That's just the reality. So many teams are vying for him. I think, it was Daniel Jeremiah who reportedly said that a lot of teams think that they're going to be the highest bidder. A lot of teams believe that they are going to be the team that gets Tyler Linderbaum, and that is just going to drive his value up. So I think you're not going to get good value here if you aren't using his athleticism and zone blocking ability to the fullest extent. If you run more of a gap and power scheme, I kind of question the fit a little bit, but essentially you have to pay him like a mid-tier franchise tackle. That's the reality. And there have been rumors that some injury concerns are holding back the Ravens from giving him what he wants. So you're going to have to contend with that if the injury concerns are substantial. So that's the number one option. He is going to be the diamond of the season, to put it in Bridgerton terms. He's going to get a really fantastic deal. So if that is a good fit for your NFL team, that makes a lot of sense. Looking to the next option, though, you're going to get, I think, a lot more value, as in you're going to have to overpay a lot less. To be clear, you're going to have to overpay all of these guys. That's the reality of free agency. But Conor McGovern is a really solid player. He was a solid player for the Bills this year. Didn't allow any sacks, only 2 quarterback hits. That is really good pass protection. He used to be a guard, so he does have positional flexibility, which I think is a big deal if you want to have him move to guard once your drafted center takes over, or if a guard gets injured and you have another option at center but not at guard. That does give you a lot of options. He is 28 years old, so he's in his prime. He has a lot of years left to play, not as young as Linderbaum, but still, offensive linemen get to play for a long time, so that's not too concerning. He's very durable, not too many injuries in his career, and as we get through this free agent market, you're going to realize quickly that that's very valuable. But he's also not going to be cheap. He's projected to make around $16 million a year. That's a pretty big difference still from Linderbaum, and that difference could be used to shore up another position, including on the offensive line. You could probably get a mid-tier guard, even, a low-tier guard and some kind of swing guard with the difference between him and Linderbaum, so keep that in mind. But he immediately provides stability and pass protection, very clean technique and timing. His run blocking is reliable. It's nothing special like Linderbaum, so that is also a matter of priorities. If you're like, we need pass protection no matter what, you might prioritize him over Linderbaum. But if you're looking for someone who elevates the run game, Probably not going to be him, but to me, this is the best value option. He's a source of positivity in the locker room, very likable guy, immediate leader on the line. And I think this is the kind of veteran player you want leading your offensive line. Maybe leading a younger unit, helping your quarterback out, taking things off of his plate. And after him, there is a definitive drop-off. These two will be paid so well because of the demand. The rest of these guys, it kind of depends how teams see them and how good of a fit they are. I'm not really ranking them because it's going to vary so much in terms of scheme fit, timeline for each team. Some teams want an older bridge player who can mentor someone that they draft. Some teams want someone they can win now with. Some teams want their center of the future. So they're thinking long-term, they want youth. Some teams just want a guy, so they can take center if he's the best player in the draft, but they don't have to take one if he's not optimal. And with that in mind, Cade Mays is the next player that comes to mind because he's played surprisingly well for the Panthers recently. He allowed 0 sacks, 21 pressures, so solid, not perfect, but solid. He's pretty young, only 26, so, I think the best argument in his favor is that at 26 years old, he could still develop under a different offensive line coach, under a different system. If your team believes that you can get more value out of him, I think that could make sense. His run blocking has admittedly been below average, but this is someone I think could fit onto a team with good interior run blocking who just needs a pass protection boost up the middle. I think he could be your guy, and he's projected to get around 12 to 13 million a year, so definitely below the other two. Still a bit of an overpay, but again, that is the reality of free agency. So after Cade Mays, you're now dealing with players who are significantly below average in run blocking or in pass protection, or even both, or guys with injury concerns, guys coming off of something significant. That's why the top 3 will be overpaid, because there is just a scarcity there, and that's especially true for Tyler Linderbaum. It is a deep draft class, but if centers start going early in the second round and you don't pick till the 50s or the 60s, it's possible that you miss out on the clear plug and play day one starter kind of centers. And, with that in mind, we can look at some of the remaining options. Luke Fortner from the Saints, he took over the starting role in week 7 because of an injury, has been pretty durable across his career. Not many injuries. He's 27 years old, so fairly young, still in his prime. But Eric McCoy seems to be the Saints starting center moving forward once he gets back from his injury. So it should be possible to get Fortner away from them if a team sees him as a proper starter rather than a backup. He played guard at times in college. He could be flexible if injuries happen around him. He's not the most powerful run blocker, but he's reasonably agile, good enough in pass protection. I think he's scheme versatile, which is a pretty big deal. And, he was probably the best player of the Saints' pretty awful interior. So a team might believe with better guards around him, he could be a solid, mid-tier starter for them. He's projected to make about $6 million, a bit of an overpay, but truly not as much as you have to at the top of the class. You can do a lot with that surplus value, and he could be seen as a bridge to a young center of the future. So that's kind of your patch up the roster and then take best player available if it happens to be a center kind of fit. And after that, I'm telling you, the drop-off is severe. You have Ethan Posick from the Browns who tore his Achilles in December, and we're not sure he'll be back to start 2026. But he could be back a couple months in. He's 30 years old, not your center of the future, but despite having some early on inconsistent performances, he's really made himself into a reliable starter outside of this major injury. The Browns may want to re-sign him, but who knows what their plan is. They need so many pieces on the offensive line. And, he's kind of middle of the pack in terms of pressures allowed, but this is someone with real strengths. It's just a matter of what is your plan for the beginning of the season if he's not entirely ready to go, right? And like I said, that is the drop-off. Injuries are very real. After him, I see everyone else as backups, and I'll mention a couple, but at this point, you're looking at guys who, maybe they bounce around between practice squads, maybe they stayed on a roster, but only ever played with injuries. And, the first name that comes to mind is Andre James. He was a backup for the Chargers, and he never got meaningful snaps for the Chargers, despite them having one of the worst centers in the league. He probably should have. I certainly would have given him meaningful snaps, but it's not like he was good for the Raiders the year before. Raiders fans were very frustrated with his performance, and to me, this has to be a depth piece signing, not a plan for the future. That being said, he did play really well in 2023, so it's possible a team will believe that he can get back to form, but his run blocking is just so unreliable, and his pass protection it's mildly better, but he is a liability if he's a starter. He will be the weakest link on most teams. Now, if he improves your team's weakest link, sure, then it makes sense, and then you can plan on drafting someone, and you at least have a body for if the draft piece needs a lot of time to develop or whatever it is. But this guy's 28, probably not going to develop a whole lot more. And the team that signs him will probably have to reach for a center in the draft because if he's the only one on the roster, you need some competition there. Even if you draft someone who you're like, I don't know if they're pro ready, you'd probably be better off taking a chance with them and developing them rather than, letting Andre James play. And if he doesn't do well, he's probably not developing too much anyways. So that's Andre James. We will see if the Chargers re-sign him, because they did not seem to trust him much. Other one that comes to mind is Ryan Bates from the Bears. He has positional versatility, generally known for his run blocking. A lot left to be desired in pass protection, which is why the Bears wanted to upgrade. He also has shoulder injuries, concussions, so the injury history is there. I don't see the Bears re-signing him. Joe Thuney is too good. I know he's older, but to me, if I'm in the Bears front office, I would be pounding the table for, let's draft our center of the future. Joe Thuney would be a great mentor. Let's let him be a mentor, and let's completely move on from Ryan Bates. That would be how I see it. Maybe a team would want him for interior depth or as a bridge guy. If they're also in a position to draft a young center, he could be a veteran presence in the room. Just not someone that you really want to depend on. And no, those are the only players I'm going to list. Everyone else, truly, you are digging through practice squads, the back end of rosters, and teams need interior depth so badly that a lot of those guys will be signed. But after that, if you need a starter, you're looking to the draft. And if all these teams need centers are looking to the draft, the centers are going to go off the board really quick. So if you want a center in this draft, you are probably going to have to reach, or you're just going to have to overpay one of these guys at the top. It is kind of a tough year to need a center in that regard, but whoever gets those top guys, or top centers in the draft especially, are going to leave pretty happy. So that's the situation with the free agent centers. I am going to look into the free agent guards as well. I think the guard market is in a bit of a better place than the centers, even if the guard draft I don't really love. I just think, if you need a center, going into the draft without one on your roster is a big risk. So these guys are gonna get overpaid. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Shout out to my members who are getting early draft content as well as bonus content, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you.